Hey guys, if you guys are new to the channel, I usually do about 2 or 3 of these deck guides each week. So basically we just go over like good, bad matchups, why we're running the cards that we're running, how the deck functions, sideboard stuff, and then we do a little bit of gameplay. So if you guys are into that, that's what we're about to jump into. Today we're going to be doing Dread Presence Citadel, like Golgari Citadel. So if you guys are familiar with the Citadel list that we had during the Explorer era with like the Jade Light Rangers and such and Wild Growth Walkers, where we were able to gain life as we were playing cards off the top of the library. It's sort of like that, but it focuses more on the ramp aspect and getting up to Citadel very fast instead of hitting our land drops per se. So basically, we have a lot of cards that ramp us, such as Gilded Goose, Paradise Druid, Azusa, so 2 additional lands. And the reason why this is good is because once Citadel is up, we can move lands off the top of our library faster. And unlike the other Citadel list, we're not focused on trying to play a lot of cards from the top, so to speak, to win the game. We are instead focused on playing lands off the top of our library to bring our opponent's life points to 0 with Dread Presence, and or to draw cards, card advantage, all of that stuff. We can kind of get there. So the other real, and then Cultivate. So best curve is like Gilded Goose into Cultivate into Citadel, because it's just insane. And then if we have a Dryad somewhere or an Azusa somewhere in there, we can play extra lands. So basically the idea is that Dryad, you may play an additional land on each of your turns. So same concept as Azusa, where we're playing extra lands with Citadel and doing damage with Dread Presence, right? The key part of this is lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types. So everything that comes into play is under our control. Therefore, everything we play is a swamp, as long as this card is up. So we're able to not only play extra lands off the top with Citadel, but we can play extra lands during our turns and combo harder. And then the rest of the library, or the deck, I guess you can say library, is focused on gaining a bit of life. Like Maze Mind Tome gains you life eventually, if we can develop this kind of early. Bond gains us life early and helps us find Citadel or other ramp cards. Like this could help us find a Murderous Rider for an answer. This could help us find Azusa or Dryad or Dread Presence. Like it just helps us find our combo pieces. Whatever we need, we can look for it. Even if it's a simple land drop, being able to pick that up and choose which one we need, like a Swamp or Triome or something, it's just kind of nice to control that. Vraska, same deal, like sort of an answer, and then the +2 here can help us draw into something else. She could probably be something different, but the little bit of life gain, the problem is I like for all of the engines in the deck, and what I mean by engines is something that produces value more than once. Like it sticks around, and like this is an engine to me. This is an engine, something that keeps you going, you know? Citadel's an engine, like that just gives you an insane amount of cards, right? This isn't an engine because it's a one-time use, but basically what I mean to say is that something like Vraska only works once per turn and then it's over. And with this type of a deck, we actually don't care about one-turn uses almost. Aside from like, you know, stuff to get us to Citadel, like Cultivate, etc., where that's a one-time use. Murderous Rider, like we need those cash, like, you know, cast it, boom, get the effect, and that really turned the game for us. That's fine to have. Vraska is sort of an in-between on that because she can only answer certain things for 4 mana, which is kind of expensive, and she only refunds 1 life, and she draws us 1 card. So the drawing 1 card could take us out from being like stuck on Citadel, like, you know, there's 2 lands on top. Like we've already played a few lands, we need to get that off. Like +1ing the Vraska to draw into that, and then to cast other cards could be beneficial, but that's a one-time use thing. Like almost certainly instead of 2 Vraskas here, we could probably have like 2 Maze Minds if we didn't need the answer from Vraska. So I feel like this is sort of one of those situations. This is like card selection type things. Sometimes they'll go on tangents about this, and I feel like it's important to discuss, but the Vraska here is very much in between being something like an engine for Citadel to keep it rolling and to keep our early game rolling and such, so we can find other better answers or better ramp, etc. Or we need something that answers something a bit harder, like Murderous Rider, where we can answer a Nissa instantly, or like a creature that might slay us, or something that provides like way more of an impactful effect, like, you know, Dread Presence or maybe another Dryad, so that we can have all of our lands be swamps and we can play additional lands. Maybe even, probably not another Azusa, but I could see another Dryad being okay. So like there's a very good possibility that we could do something like this and it would be better for the deck and make it more consistent. But that's like something we can talk about later. It's just like those are different options you have for the deck for sure. So what did we have before? It was like just 2 Vraska, right? But that being said, like everything here either works toward ramping into Citadel or comboing off Citadel, like bringing our opponent's life points down to 0 with Dryad and Dread Presence and such. That's basically how it works. Turn 1 Gilded Goose, cultivate into Citadel, play Dread Presence off the top of the deck, combo off. You can see with the gameplay coming up, like we'll be doing some gameplay and you can kind of see how that game plan works out sometimes. It's not always going to be that pretty, but it's nice to see an example of it, you know, so you can kind of help yourselves visualize it a little bit more. So card choice, we kind of went over that with the Vraska. Good and bad matchups. Oh yeah, so basically the main point about this deck, like the main thing to take away from it, is always look to see if you have lethal. All right, because this deck can have very sneaky lethals with like calculating how many lands that you've played. I recommend having like a dice or something next to you. That way you can be like, okay, I played 1 land this turn, 2, and you can just go up to like, you know, 5 or however many your max is here. But the reason to do that is to see if you can snipe certain creatures, like if they have, you know, 5 toughness and you need to snipe that card, otherwise it's going to kill you. Being able to keep track of how many lands you need to play off of the top of your library with Citadel and such is very important. Otherwise you might like miss killing the creature or miss lethal even. So before you even look at killing that creature with 5 toughness, look at your opponent's life total, see how many permanents you have in play, how close you are to sacking to deal 10 to them, and then see if you can get lethal before you start sniping creatures. Because I've had a few games where I just didn't look to shoot the basket, and then I passed instead. I know the basketball metaphor might not be for everyone, but I could have just shot it because I was open and won the game, rather than pass it and then have my teammate lose the ball, or my teammate not having as good of a shot, etc. Like that metaphor is kind of meh. But that being said, like always look for the basket. Always look to see if you can win first. That's something I'm trying to practice, but it's hard as a control player because I don't usually see lethal. Usually it's my opponent conceding after I have like 40 cards in hand, and I'm cycling through my deck with like Finale of Revelation or something and just comboing and having some fun. This is a bit of a different combo where you actually end the game pretty quickly. So I'd say look for lethal first. And then you can manipulate the deck in really cool ways, like Maze Mind. You can scry like, you know, a land to the bottom, keep comboing. Fabled Passages are actually the best land in the deck once you get Dryad out, because as it comes down, it is a swamp. And then you can tap this for mana. You don't have to crack it instantly. You can keep this as like a mini lightning helix, like a shock lightning helix, 2 damage, gain 2 life with the Dread Presence. And that's kind of nice because then you can look to not only deal more damage with this, like because this gets 2 procs with Dryad with Dread Presence out. You also can crack this in order to get another land off the top to try to find like another Fabled Passage to play with Azusa and Dryad. Because here you can play like 4 lands a turn, 2, 3, 4 lands, 1 for your turn, 2 for this, and then 1 for Dryad. That's if you don't have more than 1 Dryad out. You can do that and stack extra lands, which is pretty crazy. And so, like that being said, being able to use the Fabled not only to proc Dread Presence, but also to shuffle your library. It's just a really fun and strong tool. Like, Fabled Passage hasn't felt this fun to me in a very long time. So now we're going to be going over like matchups, like what's good and bad and such. We can actually go over the sideboard first and then talk about the matchups, which I think is more important, so I can kind of cover what we're trying to target here. So Soul Guide, mostly for Uros and potentially for like cat decks, like being able to exile a Woe Strider and then threaten to exile the whole graveyard here and there is very strong. Remorses are pretty okay against control, mostly Bant and Tamir Reclamation. Being able to pressure the hand is important. Wilt, definitely for Tamir Reclamation, but also not terrible to bring in against something like Stone Coil, like in mono green and such. People running Stone Coil Serpents. It's a very good tech. Grasp is mostly for mono green, like being able to 2-mana answer the Questing Beast is nice. I would say the card that we struggle the most with is going to be like Garruk's Harbinger. That card is going to plague us because we can't Cry of Carnarium it. So like if we're struggling with mono green, I highly recommend we swap out like one or two of these cards, like maybe a Wilt and maybe a Cry of Carnarium, or maybe a Wilt and an Agonizing Remorse for 2 or 3 Rituals of Soot total. That way we can just clear out mono green once and then grasp the Questing Beast on the way down, or be able to try to fight it. Be able to snipe it with Dread Presence twice. Stuff like that would be very good. But I would say Garruk's Harbinger is really, really dangerous. So considerations for Soot in the sideboard. Right now, this is for Sakdos and for the new Winota deck. I feel like that people have been gravitating toward that a little bit more since it's new and exciting in a meta that's like pretty stagnant. So people are going to be bringing the decks that just die, like tokens and cards that can give indestructibility and all of that stuff. We ignore it with Cry because it just exiles them all. So they lose their like selfless savior and all of that stuff and all their token generations. Like when this card dies, then you get tokens and such. So I'd say like the lieutenants are a little rough, but other than that, we're fine. And we have Grasp for that too. So like we're pretty kitted against that deck. Thought Distortions for Tamir Rec, Bant Ramp. It's a little dangerous because Tamir Rec and Tamir 4-color, or not Tamir 4-color, Rec 4-color Reclamation is starting to tech Narset's Reversal sometimes for this, so it's a little bit of a danger play, but we ramp pretty fast, so maybe they won't see it and we will see our attack. And just hope that you don't get reversaled because it's an experience. And that pretty much covers what we have this sideboard for, like in a brief sense. So now we can actually break it down. So Tamir Reclamation, like we do okay-ish against it. It says this is 21% of the meta. This isn't like a 1-for-1. You should pay attention. This is exactly what we're going to see on Arena. It just gives you an idea of what people might be net decking. This is that Winota list I was talking about. So Tamir Rec, probably like they're favored game 1, and then games 2 and 3, I think it's about even, maybe a slightly favored by them. It's a little rough. We do have good sideboard tech, so if we see our sideboard cards, definitely favored. If they see their sideboard cards and we see our sideboard cards, I'd say we can still do okay. That's pretty much where we're at there. Like Thought Distortion can go quite a bit of ways, but I would definitely bring in Grasp in case they're planning on bringing in like Elder Gargaroths and Night Pack Ambushers like they usually do. That way we're not out of it. And they might not even try it because we have Murderous Rider game 1, but they might think that we sideboard them out. It's that whole like I like trying to Yomi level like 200 the opponent. Like it can get pretty hectic. Like what do you think your opponent might do in response to what you might do? And then, you know, 4 levels above that. This is crazy. Bant Ramp, I'd say we have a pretty good shot at. Like game 1, we can combo off. They don't really have a lot of answers to us. Sometimes they sneak in like a Mystical Dispute or 2 for like, you know, big high CMC cost cards. Or they'll have like a Dovin's Veto or 2 main. But like overall, we sideboard in our Remorses and the Thought Distortions, and we have a pretty okay chance against this, I would say, overall. Like, even if they go to tap out for a Hydroid Krasis, that usually opens us up to playing a Citadel and comboing off ourselves and getting an insane amount of value / damage out. So I'd say we're pretty even. 4-color Reclamation, more tricky than Tamir because they have Vito's main deck, so game 1's way harder. Game 2, it's a toss-up still, I would say. We have a decent chance, but it's definitely a really good deck, and the problem with comparing meta lists to brews, like things that we're experimenting with, is that it can sometimes often be discouraging. Like if you don't perform well, if it feels like your deck's kind of underpowered, etc. You really have to keep an open mind about, like, we're playing something that we're brewing and something that's fun compared to something that's super meta. But I think that we combo hard enough and that we do play a solitaire list in regards to playing stuff out without our opponent really reacting to it too much, because we're comboing on our own turn. We have a good chance to beat anything if we go off, you know. So I would keep that in mind, and if you like the flavor of the deck, this can be for this deck or any deck that you play, you know, play it and enjoy it. That's what Magic's about, is playing the cards that you want to play and not getting discouraged by the meta that's just slowly, you know, blanketing over us. It just gets really annoying sometimes, but we gotta make it through, you know. Anyway, mono green Stompy. Like I was saying, Rituals of Soot will help this matchup. Don't worry about it if you lose it before tweaking it for Rituals of Soot. Just try to experiment and see if you can win without the Soots, and then if you need the Soots, make adjustments, try it again. And don't only base it off of results. Like, think about what else you could have drawn into to help that situation. Was there an out? And if so, what were your chances of drawing it? And don't try to get discouraged by the results necessarily, and try to think hypothetically, like, hey, so what are my chances of getting Soot if I have 3 in my sideboard? Will that win me the match? And then you sideboard and you don't see the Soots, but you still do the math, like, hey, I had, like, you know, a 5% chance to draw that within the top, you know, 10 cards. This is made up statistics, by the way. You know, did I have a good chance? And if the answer is you had a chance and it wasn't terrible, then that's good. Keep it up. Okay. Like, don't just base things off of results. Sakdos, we do pretty well against this list. Like, game 1, we can combo off and go above them. You just have to be careful when you're developing your engines, like Dread Presence, like make sure that it's protected somehow, or that you immediately get some value off of it, like you answer their Mayhem Devil as you play Dread Presence plus 2 lands, like if you have another card out. I think I might sideboard out Azusas against this list because Mayhem Devils can just ping them down. But that being said, like Cry of Carnarium, especially if we're bringing in Cry, right? Take out our 2 toughness dudes. Maybe not the Goose because that can ramp us and it's not terrible. It's life gain as well, but yeah, being able to go Sakdos or go Cry against Sakdos is pretty good. And we also have the Soul Guide Lantern, so this matchup isn't terrible. I'd say, like, we might need more answers to something like Mayhem Devil, which might also be Ritual of Soot, but we'll have to see. Mono white aggro. I'd say that, like, Cry of Carnarium is pretty good in this one too, because you can just stop them from making their dudes indestructible here and there, and you slow them down enough to where they don't get a huge amount of value from something like Venerated Loxodon. So, like, Cries do pretty well. We can also just go over the top sometimes game 1, like we can slow them down enough, like chump here and there with Goose or Dread Presence, etc. And they don't really have any answers for our creatures. Like Giant Killer doesn't do it. The card that kills legendaries doesn't do it. They don't have a lot of answers to us main deck. So, like, typically speaking, we can combo off and try to go faster than them sometimes. So I'd say, like, this matchup's pretty good for us, especially with our sideboard. Mono red, same deal. Like, we have Cry of Carnarium in the sideboard, which is pretty good against the Nex. Just because we exile everything and then they're just left with the NX. And then after we deal with the board, we can maybe Dread Presence, go boop boop, and play 2 lands and kind of snipe the NX eventually too. We've got Wilts as well on the sideboard, 3 of them. So, like, the thing about Wilt is that it can kill Embercleave or NX, which are 2 of the biggest targets. And if we're ahead, and we've already kind of answered the board state, we can simply cycle the Wilt. It's like a win-win situation. Like being able to answer their most powerful cards for 2 mana is just really, really powerful. So I'd say we do pretty well against that. Azorius, it's a bit grindy. The counter spells are really annoying, but Thought Distortion just blows this matchup out of the water. So unless they're teching Narset's Reversal, we're fine here. Got a lot of good sideboard options against it. Jund can be a little tricky because they're doing what we're doing, but they do damage faster. So sometimes they can race us. So we just hope that they don't do that. And that we can kind of use our wilts to stop their Citadel, to stop Trail of Crumbs, to stop Oven, just to slow them down. And then use Murderous Rider on Corvold. We have Grasp for Murderous Rider as well. I would say like it's the same deal with Sakdos, where we're going to lose sometimes to Mayhem Devil because we don't have a lot of answers to a main deck. So if Mayhem Devil proceeds to be a problem, just tech for it, whether that's main deck or sideboard. Like we have Vraska Forehead, I guess, as an answer to Mayhem Devil. So like maybe putting in more copies of something like Murderous Rider or you know, some other type of answers for creatures would be nice, like Heartless Sacrifice or something. Then I could hit Questing Beast maybe too. Sultai Ramp, pretty like close. I'd say if they get casualties off on our Vraska plus a land plus like Dread Presence, we lose. But we've got Remorses and Thought Distortions for this deck, and they're not really going to want to bring in Thought Distortions against us since we have so many non-creatures. So like the tool that we use is not the same tool as theirs, and that feels kind of good sometimes because it doesn't feel like it's a race to who draws it first, which is super obnoxious sometimes in Magic. Like, oh, they just drew better, cool. But with this, like, we just try to outramp them and get Citadel down before they can casualties, and then try to cash in on a lot of value. Sideboard's pretty okay with like Grasps and stuff, and Wilts. Actually, I don't think Wilt does anything, no. What else do we have in our sideboard? Remorses are huge. The Remorses are pretty big, and then Grasp in case they thought we can keep Uro kind of in check. Mono Black aggro is tough because of Rotting Regisaur. We only have a few answers to that, 2 Verascas, 2 Murderous Riders. Otherwise, it takes 3 procs off of Dread Presence, so we'll have to like chump that Rotting Regisaur sometimes, and I think they have the demonic enchantment that makes it flying, so like then it's only a goose, you know, to block. It's not as good. So yeah, Mono Black can be pretty spiky. Knight of the Ebon Legion is also pretty tough, like just the fact that this creature off the top can end the game unanswered, because it can just pump the remainder of their mana into direct damage to you. So that's rough. Esper, I would say that we struggle a bit against because they have hand hate, so if they keep grabbing our Remorses and our Dread Presence or top end, it can be pretty tough, but Thought Distortion helps, Remorse helps. Like, we have a good sideboard, so I think we have a good chance against that too. So I think that pretty much summarizes it, so we're going to jump right into the gameplay here. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. Go a little bit slower. So we know that we can deal with that stuff in best of 3. And that's not important. Like, we can't be like our deck is bad because it lost, because that's just not true. Well, it's true, but it's not true that our deck is bad. It is true that we lost. I will not deny that. I'd be foolish to. So, we get some good ramp going on here already. We can even go Paradise Druid Tapland here, which is a little sad because we're rolling all of our swamps before we play our Dread Presence, but that's fine. Like, we were playing above curve here. And now we have 1 Swamperino for the Dread Presence, because we can play the Forest, play Dread Presence. Actually, we can play Dread Presence with the Paradise Druid, actually, and then play our Swamp and ping something down. Or draw cards at this point to try to get ahead, since we have so much mana. We can try to get more things to cast. Yeah. I love how this deck feels right now, like just the powerful turn 1, turn 2 plays, like to make sure that we're going toward our goal, which has always been Citadel and Dread Presence, the combination of those two. We're always working toward it. Is this a starter deck? I just want to draw cards at this point. Since I can defend. Yeah, reach tribal. No kidding. What is going on, dude? Dude, Grump, what's up, man? I haven't seen you in a minute. Oh my god, Grump, I made this for you. This is just for you, buddy. I made this. You ready for his theme song? Dun, 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 dun. There we go. We'll just clear out the board here. I'm gonna play around a pump. I'm not swinging through. Like, just in case they have something that pumps by like 2 or something. They're running like a starter green deck or something. It's weird. Don't, no. Oh. No. Now how will we do Christmas without Santa Claus? I knew I should have been drawing cards. We're actually gonna play the forest to get more Dread Presence counters going off, like if we happen to draw into another Dread Presence here. Watley deck? Mine? No. Theirs? I don't know. I have no clue, man. It looks like I have some green cards. Dot deck. We have the geese. We get 2 foods. This is synergy at its peak. Look at this. I get to make 2 food tokens. This is why we have Yurok in the deck, for the sole reason of providing 2 food for us. So we have enough food for our family here. What's my chance of drawing a Citadel? 6? What else gets us out of this rut? I think it's just Citadel for the most part. Maybe we need some other type of draw in the deck, potentially. No! No. My food. My geese. No. Oh, did you hear that? That hurt my goose, dude. Okay, so we lose Yurok, and that's okay. They can actually attack now. I am just gonna eat this food. I'll keep 1 for Vraska. Okay. This helps us once we get our thingy going. Plus we can block this guy here. And we don't lose. Unless they have a pump spell. I will probably take a few hits anyway, just to be safe. So I don't have to risk my Dryad before we get into Citadel territory. Okay. Fair. How do we get this deck to move along? It really relies on Dread Presence for draw power. Is there anything else we could kind of include that would help us further? Or, because it seems like we're really relying on Citadel for card advantage at this point. And a lot of ramp for it. If that's the case, do we bump this to 4? That might be a little much. Yeah? But if we have 29 lands and we're just ramping, like, it makes sense to me to put that up to 4. It will cost you 1 Uro. Yeah, Uro can be okay. We're just splashing the blue here, though. Castle Lockwayne is a good suggestion. I like that. That is probably Castle. Probably include like one of these at least. And maybe the 4th Citadel. Now, I did not make that decision based on my sample size of one whole game of not drawing Citadel. That was me looking at my deck being like, well, what else do we have for a top end? And there was nothing there. So instead we changed one land around, one basic land for this. Take out a goose? Yeah, exactly. I think that's fine. Like 3 and 3, like having 6 1-drops is fine, I think. We go Paradise Druid here 100%. Up against a weird ramp list. Abzan, it looks like, but they could be more. Ah, I see. So we can cast Citadel next turn. How do you guys like that? I don't know how many lands I played this turn. I wasn't sure if I could play another one. And that's how it works, all right? So hopefully that gave you guys an idea of how the deck can function. Now that is pretty lucky, all right? That doesn't happen every game. I'd say like maybe if I had a wager guess, probably like 1 out of every like 10 games you get to really combo off super hard like that. Other games it's like you get it 1 turn later oftentimes. But these are all statistics that I'm making up on the spot, so probably pay them no mind. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the deck, feel free to give it a whirl. I'll have an exportable link down below. And we'll also have more deck guides and stuff coming out soon. The end panels will roll up so you can click subscribe if you enjoyed it. And that way you get notified on new decks that are coming out and such. And if you want to, there's also going to be like another video you can check out, the end panels. So thanks for checking out the video, and I will see you guys for the next one.